بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, continuing with the book by Shaykh Dr. Ali Muhammad As-Salabi, the biography of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We discussed the initial phases of the Hijrah, how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam made his plans, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, forward thinking, and a Muslim should always be forward thinking. Make adequate arrangements and plans, be prepared, be ready, and your intention is proven by the actions that you take and the steps towards which you take towards achieving that intention. So he also wanted to be part of the hijrah. He made his plans, and in the very least, as we explained, that even if he wasn't taken along on the journey, because he had the intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have granted him that reward. So having said that, they left Madinah al Munawarrah. They stayed over in the cave of Thawr. Now, they stayed there for a number of days, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And I don't recall mentioning this, but I'm going to mention this now, that Abu Bakr Siddiq is the only Sahabi who is called a Sahabi in the Quran. Therefore, to deny the fact that Abu Bakr Siddiq is a Sahabi is tantamount to kufr, because you are denying what the Quran has expressly said. ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا. One of the two, when they were in the cave, when he said to his companion, when he said to his sahib, there we go, do not fear, Allah is with us, not with me, with us. Okay? If you don't believe any fabulous stories you hear about how disbelieving he was and criminal, etc., there's no such thing. A man who has been called a Sahabi in the Quran and who Allah has declared, I am with him in that verse, you cannot deny the Iman of that man. Right? So they stayed there for a number of days, and the reason for that is that the Quraysh leaders had sent out emissaries all around the area, not only in Makkah, to announce a reward of 100 camels, which, if you are looking at a very average price camel, is around 15 to 20,000 rand times 100. It's a lot of money, about 20 million rand. So, or 2 million rand, approximately 2 million rand. So they announced that reward for whoever brings Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Abu Bakr to the Quraysh, dead or alive. Think about this. So one Sahabi, at the time he wasn't, his name was Suraqa bin Malik ibn Ju'shum. So Suraqa bin Malik was sitting amongst his tribe of the Banu Mudlij clan when a person arrived to announce to them that this is the reward that the Quraysh have offered, and would they be interested in the reward. So as they were sitting there, another man from the Banu Mudlij clan came to him and said, you know what, I've just come from the seaside and I saw shadows there. So in order to trick him so that he could be the one he said, can't be, it must be these people. And he mentioned other people's names who had also been traveling. In the meantime, after waiting there for a while, he went back home and he told his slave girl, take my horse to the other side of the mountain and just wait there for me, I'm coming. And he kind of waited and bided his time at home. Then he took his spear and he snuck out his back door, and carrying his spear low, sneaking out of the area, he ended up on the other side of the mountain, jumped on his horse, and rushed towards the direction that the man had indicated. So, brothers and sisters in Islam, in those days they had something called Azlam. Azlam was like the Arabs were very superstitious, right? So they had a should I, shouldn't I. So they had this little container with arrows in, or with stones in, or with pieces of whatever in, and on it was written, do it, and the other one said, don't do it, okay? And while he was riding, his horse tripped and fell, and he fell off the horse. Anyway, so he thought that, hey, man, this must be a sign. So he reached into the container that he had on his saddle, and he pulled out a stone. And when he looked at it, said, leave them, don't do it. Okay? So he reckoned, I don't believe in these Azlam. Convenient, isn't it? Put the thing back, jumped on his horse, and off they go again. And he was in view of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who didn't turn at all. He was reciting Quran. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was taking up positions all around him to protect him, crying. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa said to him, why are you crying? He said, I'm not crying for you, Ya Rasulullah. I'm not crying for me, Ya Rasulullah. I'm crying for you. I'm crying because if something has to happen to you, then, rather me than you. And now he sees Suraqah bin Malik coming in the distance. Okay, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam relaxed reading Quran. And as Suraqah bin Malik goes forward, his horse's legs sink into the sand. Now you might say quicksand. Okay. Anyway, he falls off the horse again. He pulls out one of those things called the azlam and he looks at it again and says, don't do it. He's like, nah, gets back, helps his horse out of the sand and gets back on the horse. And other narrations mention that it happened another time or another, and he called out to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyway, when he realized that, you know what, this man must be special if all of these things are happening to me, he changed his intention. He merely changed his intention. And all these problems stopped. He raced up to them with his horse. He announced who he was. He offered them all the help that he could give them, and he offered them money and he offered them goods, but they refused any assistance from him. We're going to get to the lessons later on, inshallah. He refused all the assistance from him. They said only one thing: just do not tell anybody about us. Keep our matter secret. Keep this a secret. So he gave them his word and he asked them, please write down a letter of protection for me. So Amr bin Fuhayra, who was the man employed by Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu as the guide, Amr bin Fuhayra, who could write, he wrote down a letter that is, this man has been offered safety by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyway, he goes back, and on his way back, Suraqah bin Malik radiallahu anhu meets another mercenary going out to a bounty hunter, shall we call him rather. And he says to him, you know what, you're wasting your time. So he dissuades the man and they go back to Makkah and he keeps quiet. He doesn't say anything until he was convinced that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had reached Madinah al Munawarrah, and that is when he gave the letter, explained what had happened. Now everybody's upset about the fact that the story is coming out, and the Quraysh, they can't say anything because it was going to basically spread the news that, hang on, Suraqah bin Malik met Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he became a Muslim, and this is what had happened. All these different events that happened, and the Azlam, and the horse falling, and the horse sinking into the sand, and all the rest of it. So they just decided to keep quiet. And Abu Jahl obviously was one of those loud mouths. And unfortunately, there are people who have this attribute. May Allah protect us, Stick to the point, brothers and sisters in Islam. If you're having an argument, stick to the point. Don't branch off and become petty and become emotional and insult and whatever. It's counterproductive. Stick to the point. Discuss the issue. Play the ball and not the man. So Abu Jahl sends him a letter insulting him. Poetry. Now that was like the worst thing that could happen. That's like a social media post today, blasting somebody publicly, because those poems just spread throughout Arabia because everybody used to memorize poetry. So he responds in poetry saying that, you know what, you probably one of the biggest ignoramuses ever, because you know it's the truth and you don't want to accept it, but the day is fast approaching that people will flock to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to become a Muslim and you would be left behind. And that day actually came. And in another mention of the encounter between Suraqah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says to him, what are you going to do on the day that the bracelets of Kisra, the king of Persia, right? The bracelets. This is now, in the past used to wear crown, the European kings used to wear crown, the Persian kings used to wear bracelets. And that was like a sign of their royalty. He said, what are you going to do on the day when the bracelets of Kisra are placed on your arms? What are you going to do on that day? Think about the day when the bracelets of Kisra are going to be placed on your arms. Subhanallah. And this is how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam repaid his kindness, because, as we will now learn, in the Khilafah of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, when they conquered Persia, Suraqah bin Malik was of quite advanced age, and he was lying in his bed, and when the crown and the bracelets of the king of Persia came to him, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu remembered this incident. What are you going to do on that day? And he immediately went to Suraqah bin Malik and he asked him, hold out your hands. And when he held out his hands, he put those bracelets on himself, and he said, Allahu Akbar walillahi alhamd. The Prophet ﷺ has spoken the truth. What are you going to do on that day, O Suraqa, when you wear the bracelets of the king of Persia? And he then put him on a horse and paraded him around the streets of Medina to show everybody that this is the honor that Allah confers on a person who is truthful and who fulfills his pledge and his promise to Muhammad sallallahu, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they continue on their journey, and as the days come closer, just dragging on, they know he's left Medina because this news has spread now because the people are looking for him. Every day, the people of Medina would go out to Harra, which is a kind of a rocky, barren area outside Medina, and they would wait for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam there. And subhanallah, brothers and sisters in Islam, day after day, they would leave early in the morning with their ceremonial weaponry and everything and wait for him. And then when it's so piping hot in the midday sun of the Arabian desert, they would then go back home day after day after day. And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it, on the last day, they went out, midday came, and they were like, okay, maybe not today. And they go back into their homes. But a Jewish man was relaxing on his balcony because they used to have these palaces outside in Medina, big mansions that they had built with balconies and, very lavish, kind of the center of Medina at the time. And he sees in the mirage in the distance that there's some movement. And as the mirage dissipates because they've come closer, he sees three figures dressed in white, which is interesting because on the way, Zubair bin Awam and Talha bin Ubaidillah radiallahu anhuma had come back from Syria on a they'd gone to Syria to do business, and they came back and they bumped into Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the desert, and they then gave these clothes, new clothes, white clothes, to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr Siddiq and Amr bin Fuhaira. So when this Jewish man was seeing them, he saw these three white figures. Really beautiful story. When my mother was seeking the message of Islam, she put her head on the ground and she said, God, if you exist, then just show me where you are. And she saw a dream. She's driving this broken little car everywhere in the dunya looking for God. And she's driving into shopping centers and into deserts and into warehouses and into jungles. Eventually, she stops her car in the middle of the desert. And she gets out and she looks around, and a man dressed in white comes towards her, and he's got light coming off of his face, such that she couldn't see any features. And he just says to her, look to Islam. And brothers and sisters in Islam, that is where our journey started, with that beautiful dream. That happened, by the way, on the 15th of Sha'ban. Can you believe it? Allahu Akbar. My mom accepted Islam on Laylatul Eid, 45 days later, 15th Sha'ban. So, when he sees these three figures, he screams and he says, oh Arabs, that your grandfather's come, your grandfather has come. And they all run out, grab their weapons and everything, back on their camels and their horses, and off they go to Harra. And there Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sitting in. There was a clan here, the Amr bin Auf clan. That was their area in Harra, and everybody just arrived there. And there was the camel was mounted. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was seated. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was standing, and everybody came because he was standing. They started meeting him and greeting him. And it's interesting that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't stop them from saying, "Hey, it's me, bro, it's me." He didn't do that because there's method in the madness. Well, let's not say madness, right? That's just the English expression. There was a reason for all of these things. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of tasawwuf and of adab and what. So, ladies and gentle people, when the sun rises and the shadow of the camel is now no longer on Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu takes his shawl off and he goes and stands above him. He holds his shawl up so that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is shaded under the shawl, and that's when everybody realizes that that's the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you must be able to understand the extent to which Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was reformed, that he was so much like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he could be confused for him. That is what we need to strive towards. We need to be so much like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that our behavior and his behavior must be the same. Our way of speaking and his way of speaking must be the same. And there's definitely an element, yes, brothers and sisters in Islam, of our own personalities being in there, but we need to try and bring ourselves as close to the Sunnah as possible. That comes with years of mujahada, but I'm going to advise you again, as I advised in the lesson this week on the 77 branches of faith, that if, I think it was in that lesson, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes to reform you, He will bring you to the feet of a pious man. Right? Remember that. So they now finally met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He stayed in that area for 2 to 3 weeks, 13 to 19 nights. Okay, and then eventually he called the Ansar and he said, "Guys, we are now going to Medina." And they all mounted their animals. They stationed themselves around Rasulullah. The sight must have been absolutely mind-blowing, mind-blowing. And they stationed themselves around Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in ceremonial armor and their swords and everything. And off they go into Medina. And as they enter Medina, it was like a festival. Everybody running out to just see him. Women and children coming to stand on their balconies. The rules of hijab had not yet been revealed, by the way. And everybody's singing, Ya Muhammad, Ya Rasulullah, and that famous Tala al Badru alayna. Allah knows best whether it's mentioned there. As we and Sheikh Ali Sallabi only mentions authentic narrations. He sometimes refers to a couple of weaker narrations, but he does discredit those narrations. Anyway, brothers and sisters in Islam, now it starts because his entry into Medina heralded a completely new phase in the history of Islam. It was probably the most historic event in the history of Islam per se, the Hijrah, signaling the new phase of progression, and Islam is now going to spread to the four corners of the world, all over, and it's going to be battles, and it's going to be spoils, and the Muslim world is going to become rich, and everything of prosperity, dunya and akhirah, didn't come for free, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. We have to sacrifice for these things, but it did come. Now comes the point that we've all been waiting for. There are a number of lessons and morals that we can learn from the story of the Hijrah. Sheikh Salabi enumerates about 25 such lessons, if I remember correctly. Let me just double check. We're going to go through some of them in a little bit more detail than others because it's very important. 25. It's very important that we do take these lessons because this is the purpose of Seerah. This is the purpose of learning. That how am I going to imbibe the message that I've just learned? How am I going to bring that into my life? How is that going to become part of me? So number one is the struggle between truth and falsehood is an old struggle, as it is still continuing in this dunya today. It is a struggle that will continue until the very end. So no matter how hard people try to extinguish the nur of Islam, the truth of Islam, they only succeed in promoting it more because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُرِيدُونَ لِيُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ. With their mouths, with their propaganda, with their falsehood, with their lies, their deceit, they wish to extinguish the nur of Allah. وَاللَّهُ مُتِمُّ نُورِهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. Or كما قال تعالى, other verse, وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ensure that His light is completed despite the fact that the disbelievers, the mushrikeen, may dislike it. So no matter how hard they try, brothers and sisters in Islam, the end game is known to us. The sacrifices to achieve that end game is known to us. You and I just need to ensure that we're on the right side of that game. Just remember what I'm saying to you. The end game is already determined. The process is already determined. The events have already been told to us in the hadith. All you and I need to ensure is that we're on the right side of that game. Right? Whatever you do, just don't be on the Liverpool side of the game. That was a poor joke. Sorry to all my friends. Okay. Number two, the enemies of Islam constantly plot against those who call others to embrace the truth. Look how they wanted to get rid of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, get rid of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Suraqah bin Malik kept himself quiet when he was sure that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was safe. He announced what had happened and they silenced him. They try to put him down and insult him. They will constantly try to stand against you. But as I explained, in fact, let me tell you a quick story. A friend of mine told me today that he accepted Islam and his mother said to him that, you disappoint me. I didn't raise you for this. But at the end of the day, you're my son and I'm forced to love you. Think about how hard that must have been. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you, does it matter what the rest of the world thinks? Think about what I'm saying. Does it matter what the rest of the world thinks? If people have a poor opinion about you, but you're innocent, does it matter what the rest of the world thinks? If somebody spread false stories about you, but you're innocent, and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clean, Does it matter what the rest of the world thinks of you? Because at the end of the day, you're going to live for this dunya and you're going to die from this dunya. The day of Qiyamah is going to be exponentially longer than your life in this world. And when the truth comes out, it's going to come out forever. When the enemies and the people who have it in for you are silenced, they're going to be silenced forever. And what did you lose out by being quiet? Allahu Akbar. May Allah give us the strength to persevere. It is a Muslim's duty, number 3, to plan and take action to achieve his goals. We discussed this last week, Jumu'ah. You cannot, guy wants to get married, so he sits in his salah, makes dua, please Allah send me a wife. But you make absolutely no effort to consult with your elders, find somebody appropriate, make no effort whatsoever. What is the purpose of that? What is the purpose of that, right? Are you expecting a builder's going to come to renovate the roof and he's going to bring his daughter with and she's going to trip and fall through the ceiling onto your lap? That's not going to happen. So we need to plan, much like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam planned, and much like Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu planned, and much like they had the entire process chalked out and the plan was already set that how they were going to do it, which way they were going to travel, etc., etc. We needed to plan. And like Mullah Mufti Ibrahim Desai said, and we mentioned this during Ramadan, plan your work and work your plan. That is how you're going to achieve at the end. Number 4, in order to achieve one's goals, one must plan and strive at the work. As we just said, plan your work and work your plan. People ask how great ulama in the past achieved so much in their short lifespan. The answer is effective time management. Time management doesn't only mean that you give a slot to everything you want to do. Time management also entails determining what is necessary to do and what can be left. I explained the focal point principle in the book by Brian Tracy, focal point, that you categorize what you need to do in A, B, C, D, E. So A is extremely important, B is important, C can be done because it's a C, and D means delegate, E means eliminate. What can be delegated must not get done, must be delegated. What can be eliminated must not get done by anyone. Never do a B if there's an A, never do a C if there's a B. It's that simple. If you have a number of A's, a number of B's, a number of C's, what you do is you number them 1, 2, and 3 in order of importance, and you work A1, then A2, then A3, then B1, B2, B3, like that. That is called effective time management, because not only are you allocating time slots for what to do, but you're also allocating things to do for those time slots effectively and efficiently. May Allah give us tawfiq and understanding. Number 5, a Muslim must have faith in the miracles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is part of our iman that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did miracles. And one of those miracles, as we explained, was the story of Suraqah bin Malik and the bracelets of Kisra. It was a premonition of what is to come, and it was inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, there are a number of other miracles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, water coming out under his fingernails, a single glass of milk sufficing an entire group of people, splitting the moon, etc., etc. We believe in all of those miracles. I mean, Mi'raj. Brothers and sisters in Islam, you and I believe in Jannah and Jahannam. How do we not believe in things that are far, far less than Jannah and Jahannam, right? So a person who believes in Jannah and Jahannam, which is the unseen, shouldn't have a qualm believing in the miracles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Understand it's part of our iman, our aqidah as Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, to believe that the miracles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in fact, the karamat, the miraculous supernatural feats performed by some of the pious people, are also the truth. Haqq is part of our iman. And this doesn't mean that somebody doing something supernatural is directly or a clear-cut indication of his piety, because there's a lot more to karamat than what meets the eye. That's a discussion for another day. Okay, number 6, brothers and sisters in Islam, it is permissible for a Muslim to seek help and assistance from a trustworthy disbeliever, contrary to popular belief. And I've had this, and I'm going to share this with you. You know, Allah, a white woman accepts Islam. She gets married to a local Muslim brother, and he sits pensively one day, and she asks him what's wrong. Now, I know the story because I heard it firsthand. He says, no, I can't deal with the fact that you used to be a prostitute before you got married. And she was like, what? So he said, yeah, isn't all white people just sleep around with whoever they can find? I mean, la ilaha illallah, brothers and sisters in Islam. You cannot think low of people like that because of stereotypes. Everybody is not bad, okay? And all of us will agree that we have friends who are not Muslim and are very, very, very good people. We need to respect such people, and we're allowed to confide in those people. We're allowed to take assistance from those people, but you don't make a non-Muslim your bosom buddy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly states in the Quran, لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء. Right? You believers do not make the disbelievers their bosom buddies, their awliya, people in charge of their matters and affairs and stuff like that, because then you end up becoming extremely apologetic about your deen and you can throw your iman away. But to respect and honor a person who's respectable and trustworthy and reliable and honorable, why not? Okay? And if that person can benefit you in terms of your dunya or in terms of your deen, believe it or not, then why not? It doesn't mean you accept the belief that he holds or that you agree with his belief. You respect the fact that he's made a decision, right? And you respect his decision and you don't interfere with his decision. But if the man gives you good counsel and the man can assist you and help you, then why not? Okay? Number 7, a woman played an important role in the hijrah. If you remember, Asma bint Abi Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anha, in fact, radiallahu anhuma, tore her sash in half to tie up the patkos, the daily food of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she was called Dhatun Nitaqain, the woman with the two sashes, because she ripped hers in half to be able to tie up Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's food that went with. So she assisted in the hijrah. She was supportive of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is indicative of the important role that women play in Islam, and that is sadly very often overlooked, right? So may Allah give us tawfiq that we can honor the women in our lives and in our family and in our communities. Subhanallah, we need to give credit where credit is due. Number 8 is the mushrikeen would deposit their valuables with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we mentioned, a clear indication of the fact that he's trustworthy and reliable is after he declared himself a prophet. I mean, after he announced that he was a prophet made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, deputed by Allah Jalla Jalaluh. And everybody was belying him. Oh, you're a liar. But I've got some bugs here, and I don't want my brother to find out about it because he's going to steal it from me. Would you mind looking after? Subhanallah, isn't that so contradictory? Subhanallah, you you call him a liar, but you look up some bugs for me. That's a bit silly. But anyway, this is evidence that they also didn't believe. And many people go with the flow. Many people are excused because they go with the flow. They don't think for themselves. This is why I exhort everybody, think for yourself. Think for yourself. If everybody's doing something, it doesn't make it right. And if only one person's doing something, it doesn't make him wrong. May Allah give us tawfiq and understanding. Number 9 is a Muslim tries to be independent of the favors of other people. One of the most outstanding qualities of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and I've mentioned it this week in the lectures as well. وَمَا لِأَحَدٍ عِنْدَهُ مِنْ نِعْمَةٍ تُجَزَى. He owed nobody any favors. He fulfilled was under the discussion of debt in the 77 branches of faith. He owed nobody any favors. Right? So think about this. A Muslim should try not to have other people's ihsan on him, because people use that as leverage to get you to do what they want. People use ihsan as leverage to get you to do what they want from you. So this brings me to another point that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited: qardin jarra naf'an. If you lend somebody money, you cannot use that person for favors because he owes you money. Okay? Him owing you money is a separate thing. This is why if somebody owes you money, then don't blackmail them because they owe you the money. Allah give us tawfiq and understanding. We should try not to owe anybody anything. This is why they refused Suraqah bin Malik when he offered them any assistance. But there's another element to that. A da'i avoids taking wealth from people. A person in the path of Islam should spend his own wealth, should spend his own time, his own effort. He mustn't make effort and steal from other people's time. He mustn't make an effort and use other people's money, right? Use your own money. Take out your own personal time. Make your own sacrifice. Don't make other people sacrifice for your deen. Right? Number 11, the Prophet's companions were loyal, loving, and well trained. This is why Abu Bakr Siddiq anhu would station himself all around him all the time, fearing for the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam before his own life. Number 12, to be an ideal leader, one needs to physically make your own sacrifices, be knowledgeable, and have wisdom. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the epitome of such leadership, evidently, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created him as such. And you and I need to take the lessons from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of leadership. We will get, especially throughout the military campaigns, to those various aspects of the leadership of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Um, there were Buraidah al-Aslami, radiallahu anhu, accepted Islam, and as well as his traveling party during the Hijrah. That's just a side story that we didn't mention. And also, two thieves met up with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the way. Who are you? What do you do? No, I'm a prophet. Gave them doubt. They accepted Islam. Allahu Akbar. Along the journey, also, we explained that he mentioned Zubayr and Talha. He met Zubayr and Talha radiallahu anhuma. And number 16 was that commonly shared correct beliefs, right, have a potent effect on removing enmity from the hearts of people and uniting them. I mean, look at people who, prior to Islam, hated each other, and having accepted Islam, they endeavored and they would compete with each other to fulfill each other's rights and be kind and generous to one another and forget, forgive and forget. Allahu Akbar. It's easier said than done. Hey? Number 17, the Muhajirin and Ansar became overjoyed when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam arrived in Medina because, as we explained, it was like a payoff to the sacrifices that they had made, or for the sacrifices they had made. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's journey to Medina has some resemblance to the Mi'raj. I'm not going to go into much detail of it, but from Makkah to Al-Aqsa and Aqsa through to the heavens, and from there Hidayah was brought back down in the form of Salah, etc., and various spiritual gifts and so much knowledge from the Akhirah brought to the Ummah from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the same way, he went from Makkah to the cave of Thawr, and from there on to Medina, from whence the or from where the Hidayah spread throughout the four corners of the world. So there is that kind of a similarity. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's da'wah was a gradual step-by-step process. And I'll never forget my CrossFit gym instructor, Moulana Smith, said, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. As long as you are moving at a steady, calculated pace, you are going to complete. And because you are calculated and steady, it will save you from short bursts of achievement and then periods of stagnation in between. So slow is smooth and smooth is fast. This is why it seems like obstacles and these kind of difficulties throughout, but it was a steady pace. And it seems like a long time, but 23 years to reform the whole world, to change the mindset and the direction of the entire globe. 23 years to become from being the lowest of the low in terms of barbarity and in terms of civilization, that nobody even wanted to colonize you and take you as slaves, to becoming the epitome and the yardstick for morality and progression and thinking and knowledge. And the word is a law, ma'arif, L-O-R-E, in the world, to become the role models and the flag bearers of progress in the world. That's no small feat in 23 years. Allahu Akbar. And this is clear evidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was assisting. Number 20 was that the Muslims of Makkah made a tremendous sacrifice moving to Medina. Understand, it's no small sacrifice to leave everything you know and love behind for the sake of Islam and coming into an entirely new environment, new people, new faces, new everything, only for the sake of Allah at all cost. Brothers and sisters in Islam, we need to appreciate the sacrifices of our forefathers, the sacrifices of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum specifically. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam honored Ma'bad. If you remember, just after the journey had started, they'd left the cave of Thawr, they were really hungry, they stopped off, and there was this old lady and a goat that didn't give milk. That whole incident, Ma'bad, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam honored her. Listen to this beautiful story. It has been related about Ma'bad that she began to prosper after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam visited her, right? And her flock of sheep continued to grow. And one day she brought a part of the flock to Medina. Once there, she passed by Abu Bakr Siddiq, and seeing him and recognizing him, her son said, "O mother, here is the man that came with that blessed person." She approached Abu Bakr Siddiq and said, "Ya Abdullah, O slave of Allah, who is that man that was with you?" He said, "And do you really not know who he is?" She said, "No, I don't." He said, "He is the Prophet of Allah." Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu then took her to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he honored her, giving her food, giving her gifts. And according to one narration, she gave Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam some cheese and some Bedouin clothing, which he then dressed in, which she gave him, and he gave her some gifts back. Right? One of the narrators said that he was sure that he heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or even perhaps Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, say that she had embraced Islam. That he had heard Abu Bakr Siddiq say that she had embraced Islam as well. Ma'bad. There's a narration in Al-Wafa that states that her and her husband both migrated to Medina. Her brother Khunais also accepted Islam and was martyred on the day of the conquest of Mecca. So we'll get to that story. Normally they say there was no bloodshed, but there was a small little skirmish or two on the outskirts of Mecca as they were coming in, predominantly by the hardline left-wingers that didn't want anything to do with this, and they took to arms on their own. And unfortunately, they walked straight into Khalid bin Walid, which was the biggest mistake they could have made. Anyway, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, a very interesting story. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered Medina, he asked Abu Ayyub Ansari that where is the closest home of my family? Because his mother was from the Banu Najjar tribe, and so was Abu Ayyub. He said, it's my door, Ya Rasulullah, because it was right there. So he said, this is my home, this is my door. Please come inside and be my guest. And he said, okay, go and prepare a place for us to sleep. Think about it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent to sleep upstairs. He said, no, I can't sleep upstairs because people are going to come in and out to meet me. So you and your wife sleep upstairs. I'll sleep downstairs. It makes it easier for the guests. Him and his wife were so scared that they were going to impede wahi descending that they stood around the walls of the house. They didn't know. They couldn't sleep the whole night, and they came down and begged him, please, Ya Rasulullah, we didn't sleep last night. We were so scared we're going to become like a barrier between wahi and you. So we stood against the walls the whole night waiting. We didn't want anything to go wrong. So would you please sleep upstairs so we can sleep? And he was like, you know what? You're so sweet. I'll do it for you. Anyway, Allahu Akbar. And the other points we will probably touch, or we have touched on, but not specifically. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, lastly, his migration was, sorry, second last point, his migration was to be sure a pivotal moment in the history of mankind. As we said, it was the start of a complete revolution in the world. And lastly, hijrah, for the sake of deen, is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, brothers and sisters in Islam, if you and I are in a situation where our deen is being impeded and we are not allowed to practice as Muslims, then it is part of hijrah, it is part of the sunnah of the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam specifically, that we make our alternative arrangements to leave that place so that we can go to a place where we're able to practice Islam freely and correctly. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and grant us hidayah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with understanding of deen. May Allah bless us with these beautiful attributes of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whatever I've said that is correct is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul, the barakah of His Rasul, and the great benefit I've derived from my teachers. And whatever I have said that is incorrect is only my nafs and shaitan and me falling prey to his whisperings, and Allah and His Rasul are absolved of it entirely. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.